All right, Monday Fun Day here. About a half a dozen games in college basketball underway, and looks like Ohio State figuring out ways to blow this one here. But we do have a number of games still ready to go here. Short card on this Monday, and we're going to break down a couple of games, not just still coming up, but maybe take a look at a game or two coming up tomorrow in what is going to be a huge card here. And we're going to do it, of course, with three of the finest at WagerTalk.com as we welcome back in Bryan Power in the house, Drew Martin ready to roll here, center spot, and of course, Adam Trigger ready to roll here. So we've got a handful of games underway already, but what we want to do here, of course, is maybe take a look back there, BP. The year was 2000. It was the Raiders center. No, I'm only kidding. We are going to go with we're telling some stories behind the scenes about the last time we've seen certain teams in the playoffs, and boy, oh boy, BP coming up with some stories for us here. But take a look back at the weekend, BP. What was the big takeaway in college hoops? Because once again, whole lot of top 10 teams got not so great here, and some teams, of course. They won these big underdog role games last time out. Didn't work out all that well for them the following game. So it's conference time's a different animal this time of year in college basketball.
Yeah, Joe, what I learned is I may not be betting many road teams the rest of the way in college basketball. I know that's a blanket statement, but especially if the road team is ranked and either an underdog or laying 3.5 or fewer to an unranked team. When the odds makers are telling you, hey, we think this ranked team could be in some trouble, chances are they usually are. As you know, Joe, I was big on this last year, but ranked teams, when on the road, getting points against an unranked opponent, they were pretty much auto fades for me. The unranked home favorites cashed at 67% in that situation last season. And thanks to a tweet from Ralph Michaels over the weekend that I saw, we can even now expand on that. When you've got a home dog of 3.5 or less versus a ranked opponent, those home dogs, 73, 46, and 2 ATS run entering the weekend. And on Saturday, I had some luck following the trends. I faded 3 ranked teams on the road. Kentucky, they were a dog at A&M. Got a little lucky with overtime, but I got the win there. San Diego State was a dog at New Mexico. I'll be talking about New Mexico here on the show today. San Diego State got blown out. And Utah State was a 2-point favorite at UNLV. And if not for a miraculous 5-point play, I mean, this wasn't Yale, Vermont, which I know is etched in Trig's memory until the end of time. But a 5-point play at the end of regulation gave Utah State a 1-point win. Luckily, I had UNLV +2. So that was 3 for 3 for yours truly. That's what I learned over the weekend, Joe. Ranked teams on the road, stay away. It is very hard to win on the road in college basketball. I think relative to other sports, home court advantage, is worth more in this sport than any other sport. Still over 3 points, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm with you. Certainly with some of these teams. I mean, Drew, if you're a top 10 team, good luck maintaining that top 10 status, because a lot of them seem to have got it pretty good against unranked teams. To BP's point here, what was something you pulled away from college hoops over this past weekend?
Sure, Joe, and a lot going on. I mean, to BP's point, I almost feel like some of it's travel induced with some of these smaller conferences going on the road. I think that just, the travel accommodations, this is not the NFL, the NBA. So when teams make these trips, it's maybe not all that comfortable for them. And then you add in the hostile atmosphere on top of it. It makes sense why some of these college basketball teams are really struggling. One thing I want to bring up here, Joe, is we're seeing teams with a lot of injuries in college basketball, but you really got to pay attention to the injury list, guys, because some of these teams, one of which I'll get into for Big Game Breakdown, are getting healthier this time of year, getting their best players back in the lineup. And one of the great advantages we have as sports bettors in college basketball, I mean, how many teams? Over 360 teams. There is a lot for these odds makers to keep up with. If you can find some of these teams getting healthier this time of year, looking to bet on them, because, hey, when they get their best player, their second best player back, their scoring averages usually go up. They're better on the defensive end as well. So pay attention to the injury list, guys. And when guys come back, circle those teams. And if they look good, bet on them and then keep betting on them. That's one of the best ways to build a bankroll. Find some of these
Yep.
teams riding under the radar with a record that might not be all that good, Joe. And you can kind of catch them with some quote unquote value here this time of year.
Yeah, it's amazing the whole it's game to game. I mean, we used to be able to get stretches, Trig, of some teams that we knew they were going to bring it, whether it be road at home. But now it just feels like everything's a bounce back. Wow, did that team lose last game? Because now now they're going to bounce back. Especially some of these unranked teams that pulled off upsets. They're almost an instant fade the next game because then they got to go on the road and they don't win, they don't cover, and they're back to square one. Parody is amazing so far this year in college hoops.
No, it definitely is. I feel like it's mostly the case every year. Like those are things that I feel like pop up every year. It's never easy to win on the road for the most part. You have to be on top of the injuries, and in a lot of these conference, but the parity is always. But like I would say, like more so like in relation to this year, I think you're starting to see that some of these like conferences that are being formed, like the Big 12, right? Like you've got 4 new teams. Well, you put in 4 teams that can play, and all of a sudden it makes life really difficult when you already had a good conference. Then you add a team like BYU, Cincinnati, who gave Baylor a game over the weekend, UCF, who's like not I would thought they would be the worst of the 4, beating Kansas. Then you bring in a team like Houston, who was supposed to be like the top contender, and now they're dropping games. So definitely speaks to your point with parity. The one thing I don't know how to quantify this really. But the one thing I've noticed, like watching a ton of ball this weekend and just like this year in general, I'm seeing a lot of like 15, like I would say like 10 to 15 point runs where like all of a sudden a team with a lead just stops scoring. It happened like 6 times this weekend, costing that team the game. I know I was on the wrong side of it with Cleveland State. I was on the wrong side of it with Rice. Murray State was up 7, and they went from up 7 to like down 9 yesterday. 16-0 run. San Diego had a bad one against I think Pepperdine rattled off like 19, like 15 straight points. I mean, this happened, and this is just me going off memory. I'm sure there's other examples of it. I don't know exactly how you make money off of that. Maybe there's got to be, some sort of in-game sort of betting, maybe trying to like, maybe you keep maybe if you can see it materializing, like I'll just give an example. I had Rice on Friday. I could feel that coming from a mile away. I was like, oh, this is how this is going to go. So maybe you just keep pressing it live and taking it every time it comes up on the live, like, because, most of these websites that you bet on, or, most of the time the offering for live is smaller, but you can bet it, more than once. But man, it seems like once it goes for some of these teams, it goes. And you might be able to just in-game your way to a profit if you can anticipate that happening. Because I don't know if the guys have any other examples of this. I have 6 off the top of my head where there was a 14-0 run one way toward like the end of the game that completely flipped the game. Cleveland State was a great example yesterday. They controlled that game for the majority of the second half, gave up 15 straight points to Green Bay, and all she wrote. So that's the new thing to me that like I feel like I'm seeing that more this year than I have in years past.
There is a stat for that. I think they consider runs of 10 or more, right? Is that what it is?
Vomiting?
Bart
Like
Torvak
vomiting
or
on yourself?
It's one of them, right? What am I supposed to read lips here, BP? What are we doing here? What do you want me to clap it out?
Muted.
Are you in
So
Mexico
excited
right
you
now?
forgot.
I always like to be very professional. There we go. Yes, you took the words. I can't remember if it's Ken Palm or Torvik or somebody else. It's called a kill shot when a team goes on a 10-0 run.
Yes.
Yeah. I actually was the beneficiary of one of those games with New Mexico. I'll talk about them. New Mexico had one of those runs in both halves against San Diego State, where they just the game just flipped. Yeah, it is pretty crazy when that happens.
Yeah, there is. That's what I mean. That. Well,
that's what I'm saying. It's been scenarios. It's been scenarios where, I mean, if you go back to the Rice game from Friday night, I mean, Rice had all the momentum and controlled the whole game. That's kind of what I'm saying is like Murray State yesterday. They, for the most part, controlled that game until the quote unquote kill shot. And then they had no chance. That's what I'm seeing more of, I think, this year than I remember in years past, for sure.
It's a great stat. We'll get a readout on that this week for you guys, and we'll get it up in graphic form so you can check it out here as far as who those top teams are, preventing them, and also being the team there that provides that kill shot. So good stuff there. We do have Evan Maya. That's it. Yep, outstanding stuff there. Way to go, BP. So kick us off here. You said you got a game tomorrow you're going to look at for a big game breakdown. And don't forget, hit that thumbs up for us, guys. If you're joining us for the first time, hit that subscribe button. A&M, you said you were the beneficiary, was it, of a game this past weekend? Was that against Kentucky? Well, they'll be taking on Arkansas at the Bud Walton Arena, I believe, tomorrow. Or is that Drew's game? I'm sorry, I'm reading the wrong name. I'm sorry. So you know what? Screw you, BP. I already set it up, so I'm going to Drew. Drew, I want you to break down A&M taking on Arkansas for us. What do you got there?
How about it, Joe? Well, yeah, why bury the lead here with the Aggies and the Razorbacks? I'll tell you guys, 9 p.m. Eastern on SEC Network. This is Tuesday night, and I wanted to get ahead of this, Joe, because, and sure enough, looking at the WagerTalk live odds screen, always doing a great job. Texas A&M just opened -1.5 as the road favorite here, and it's already bumped up to as high as 3.5 in the offshores. Wow. However, DraftKings has a -2 right now. Guys, if you're watching the show, I recommend betting on the Aggies right now because I would project more money to come in on them. Granted, this is Tuesday night, guys, 9 p.m. Eastern. Couple reasons why. We know Arkansas, Joe, head coach Musselman. I know Trigg knows of just a wild man on the sidelines down in Diet Cokes there. But the fact is, they've lost 3 straight games. They are not playing good basketball. And it speaks to kind of the injury list. They're banged up right now. They're not turning people over. And when they don't get those transition points, it's really not the same team. And they're not getting that right now. They have not scored 70 points yet in SEC play. And now going up against Texas A&M, kind of using the injury list that I talked about at the top of the show, Joe, Texas A&M is a team I have circled right now to bet on under Buzz Williams. And the reason being, their point guard, Wade Taylor, he's one of the most underrated point guards in all of college basketball. Just one of those guys, when he's handling the ball, he is quicker than pretty much all the defenders on the opposite side. So they can kind of spread out their offense. He can beat his man off the dribble and kind of set it up for the Aggie offense. And here's the real thing injury-wise. Their guard, Tyrese Radford, he's going to be playing in the NBA one day, in my opinion. They have a really underrated guard combo here. They're 10-6 on the season. It's not that sexy, but their 6 losses are to FAU, Virginia, Memphis, Houston, LSU, and Auburn. All of those teams might make the tournament. And now they're getting healthier because Tyrese Radford is back in the lineup. And sure enough, they beat Kentucky last time out in overtime. This team is getting healthier at the right time. And guys, it's not going to last that long. We might get a couple games here, but now is the time to be betting on a team getting healthier in Texas A&M. I would jump on this -2 at DraftKings right now. I think it's a lot higher by tip-off Tuesday night. Give me Texas A&M, big game breakdown. That's a game I'm going to bet right now, Joe.
Yeah, it's been terrible for Arkansas here. Just can't score. It's been rough there for them. So, guys, get on top of that right now as the numbers are starting to roll out if you're catching this live on this Monday. All right, BP, we'll head back to you now. We'll head out west because you did mention, of course, Utah State. What an interesting game that was over the weekend. New Mexico as well. So now they're going to the Pit, I believe, which is obviously not an easy place to play if you're Utah State. But what do you think we're going to get here in this game tomorrow?
Yeah, so let's go back to what I said at the outset of the show. You have a ranked team as an underdog against an unranked team. The situation presents itself Tuesday night, the Drew Martin trademark late night degenerate special. This is, and I like I like New Mexico at home, much like I liked New Mexico at home against a ranked San Diego State team over the weekend. That was the game that featured multiple kill shots that I talked about. I know Trigg is with me on this one. This Utah State team is performing way, way above anyone's wildest expectations. I did have them 2 Saturdays ago as an unranked favorite against Colorado State. They cashed for me. But in the 2 games since, what's happened? They were only up 2 at home on Wyoming at the half, yet they managed to win by 20 plus. So there's another game that just turns on its head in an instant. Then as I referenced earlier, against UNLV over the weekend. They were a short favorite, Utah State in Las Vegas. The Aggies trailed by as many as 13 points. The only time they were winning the entire game was the final 8 seconds after the 2 go-ahead free throws to complete the miracle 5-point play. Again, luckily, I had UNLV +2 and still covered. Now, New Mexico, let's talk about them. Nice winner, again, against San Diego State on Saturday. You referenced the Pit in Albuquerque, people begging Trig to go there for a game. Joe, you said how difficult it is to win there. Absolutely. New Mexico at home this season, 9-0 straight up, 7-1 against the number. They win by an average margin of greater than 20 points per game. Given all that I laid out earlier, this situation demands a look at New Mexico. The Lobos still not ranked. I actually think right now, from a power ratings perspective, they're number 1 in the Mountain West, at least in my power ratings. Utah State, they still are in the top 25. That came out, I think, about an hour before we are recording here. My only concern for this, and I just looked at the line, I just pulled up the WagerTalk.com odds screen. I figured we were going to have to lay multiple possessions, with New Mexico, and that is the case. The line opened at 4. I think it's already on its way to 5.
Yep.
Given New Mexico, how strong they're at home, and Utah State due to regress a bit, Joe, it's favored or pass for me on that Tuesday late night degenerate special. If you like New Mexico, I would say hop on them very quickly because this line is going to probably go north of 5 because everyone's aware of the trend that I've been talking about here for the last couple minutes.
Yep. Daniel's got his boys playing there, and you got to figure there might be some regression at some point here with Utah State. My goodness, on the road in the Pit. Hop on it there, guys. That game is tomorrow, like BP said. And Trig, you're going to talk about Siena, right? Aren't they playing today? I would bet them. I don't know about you, but no, we have another interesting one coming up later in the Big Ten. This line flip has been crazy because it didn't open up with Minnesota as a favorite. I think they were getting 1. And then I saw it as high as 3. It looks like it's settling back down to 2.5. So I guess people thought Big Ten team at home, they were catching a point. Yeah, they couldn't wait to fade Iowa here. Is it too big a move for you, or are you spot on with the market?
So I figured I'd come on, talk about Iowa because it's very similar to, I guess, how Iowa's like game line moved on Friday, but in Iowa's favor. And we got that right. I gave Iowa out on Friday on the show as my best bet, and they blew out Nebraska by 18. But I think I do agree with the move again here. I think the Minnesota is probably the correct side. So Friday was just a home run home spot for Iowa, a team that has as drastic of home road splits over the last few years. Really, like we could probably go back the last decade. Can almost call it like since Fran has been there. As drastic of home road splits as you're going to find in college basketball, and this year is no exception. 8-1 at home, 0-4 in true road games. They tend to play well at home, but at the same time, they tend to be really poor on the road. I admittedly was wrong about this Minnesota team. I had them ranked pretty close to the bottom of the Big Ten. And you know, there's still time, but I think this team is a lot better than I thought they were coming into the season. And I almost think that the injury to Dawson Garcia might have actually helped them a little bit, as crazy as that sounds. You know, him missing a few games there, let other guys step up, and you know, Minnesota played well. I know their schedule wasn't, you know, anything to write home about, but they played well in his absence, and they've been able to sort of put him back in and kind of keep the momentum going. You know, they've got 5 guys averaging double figures, with Garcia being the leading scorer. I guess the overall point there is it's just that there's more on this Minnesota roster than just Dawson Garcia and a bunch of scrubs, which is kind of how I looked at it, you know, at the beginning of the season. The main person to emerge sort of, you know, with Garcia out for a period of time was Pharrell Payne. And, you know, I think that time was like pivotal for him because he started kind of, became like the go-to guy in the paint. And now you've got 2 guys, Garcia and Payne, 6'11", 6'9".
There he is. He's back. Sorry, you got frozen there, Trig, but go ahead, continue.
I mean, as you guys know, central Western New York, we've had quite a bit of weather here. So the wind has died down. but who knows? Anyway, I'll just pick back up and say this. I think Minnesota is a little bit better than the market anticipated. At the same time, this matchup for Iowa is not nearly as good as the Nebraska matchup was because they were able to sit in their zone, and Nebraska is really not built to like pass around the zone and get open shots. Minnesota's got two guys that I already mentioned, Garcia and Payne, that can really, get into the interior of a zone. And they also shoot the ball well. This is a top 100 3-point shooting team. They're 32nd in field goal percentage nationally. So I just think this is a much worse matchup for an Iowa team that always struggles on the road. I agreed with the move here. I like Minnesota. I would lay up to 3 with the Gophers.
Oh, all right. Laying up to 3 there. It's sitting right around 2.5 right now. That one is coming up a little bit later here today. So 3 big game breakdowns coming up now. We've got 3 best bets we're going to take a look at. And of course, hit that thumbs up if you're joining us live here today on this Monday. Also, the subscribe button. Become part of the WagerTalk TV family. Check out all the daily and weekly content we've got on all the big games across all sports each and every day here on WagerTalk. And we're going to take it full circle here, and we'll head back to Bryan Power here, ready to roll for a best bet here, BP. Tell the folks what you got rolling on this Monday and talk to us about, this is going to be, this is rich. Tell us what we're going to get with McNeese taking on Lamar here tonight, a game you were this close to going to, I heard. So what do you think here in this one?
Yeah, couldn't guarantee the under would hit in this one, so I didn't want to make the long trip to McNeese there, Joe. So, look, unfortunately, if you wanted my first play today, that is no longer available. It was over in, you talk about too far in a place that I'm not going to fly to for an under. Italy, it was in Serie A. We had a little soccer to start the week. But tonight, I've got 2 plays on Bucks-Eagles. I'm playing the side. I talked about it on WagerTalk today. I also have what I think is a really sharp prop bet on that game as well. People can head over to my page, wt.buzz/BP, to pick that up right now. Best bet, yes, it is Lamar and McNeese. And Joe, I'm always amused when we get to March, those 3 days between the NCAA tournament bracket being released and when the round of 64 gets going, when all of a sudden these people come out of the woodwork that have watched, an hour of college basketball all season, and they're big experts on the 12 and 13 seeds. They're going to tell me if they're going to pull an upset or not. Well, I'm going to do those folks a favor right here on the program Monday, January 15th. And I'm going to let them know that McNeese is going to be a trendy upset pick come March Madness. When smoke clears and this regular season is over, I think McNeese may have more wins than any other team in all college basketball at the end of the regular season. They're already 14-2. They have non-conference wins over UAB, VCU, Louisiana, and Michigan. They're going to roll through the Southland where, get this, I don't think there's a bigger gulf between the top team in the field than any other conference in America. McNeese is 92nd in the KenPom ratings. No other team in the league is higher than 258th. That is just massive. Now, because of that, they're going to be priced as a big favorite each and every time out, McNeese. And at the betting window, since the new year, they are 0-3 against the spread. But what I think we've seen here is, unlike a lot of teams who get really fired up for conference play, maybe there was a malaise for McNeese to start Southland play. They had that great non-conference run. They're laying double digits in 3 games that they knew they were going to win. And for the record, they won those 3 games still by a total of 24 points. So it's not like they were holding on for dear life. They played well. They got the win. They didn't get the cover. But tonight, I think we're getting a really focused effort out of McNeese. Why? Because they're facing the only other team in the Southland still without a conference loss, and that is Lamar, who you may recall, Joe, was a best bet winner for me last Monday on the program. But they are not facing Incarnate Word, Paul Quinn, or your favorite Our Lady of the Lake this time out. It is the top team in the Southland, McNeese, and it bears mentioning. Last time out, what did Lamar have to do over the weekend? Rally from a 13-point deficit to get to overtime and beat Nicholls State. This is their second road game in 3 days. Lamar, they're facing by far the top team in the Southland. It's just a bad spot. Even if you remove non-D1 opponents, okay, McNeese's average margin of victory at home is still in the double digits. They don't turn it over. They play at a slow tempo. They hold opponents to 34.9% shooting at home for the season. I think this is the shortest number we're going to see at on McNeese at home the rest of the way. I would lay it. Best bet for the show, McNeese -12.
I believe that is probably the best team money can buy. Isn't Will Wade the head coach of McNeese there, former LSU corrupt? Yeah, Drew, you know about that. So, yeah, I am sure this is without it, a lot easier to wash money at McNeese than LSU. So, it should be very easy to get the players you want there. But that game coming up a little bit later, 8 o'clock Eastern time tip. Drew, for a best bet here. Oh boy, I don't know if you're sucking up to Robert or where you're going. Depends on the pick here, but everybody's favorite Mississippi Valley State. If you like watching paint dry, this is a team for you. We're taking on Texas Southern here at TS here tonight. Tell me, how are you approaching this game?
Sure, Joe. I mean, Will Wade, yeah, some off the court issues to put it nicely, but he finds himself at McNeese State. We'll see what he can do. I'll tell you, Joe, actually, this is an early start today, guys, so you don't have a lot of time to get it in, but I really like this matchup. Heading to the SWAC here, Mississippi Valley State, Jerry Rice and all. However, they're 0-16 on the season, going up against Texas Southern here. And you mentioned Robert, and they're in Houston, Texas. They're only 3-11 on the year. So a combined 3-27 record-wise for both of these two teams. We get a 126 as the total. It's a low total in consideration, but it is low for a reason here, Joe. We get Texas Southern as the minus 15-point home favorite. Early start. It's not really in foul fest range. I'm going on the under, guys, for a couple reasons. These are two of the worst offenses in all of Division I college basketball. We have Mississippi Valley State, probably the worst team in all of D1 basketball, but even Texas Southern, I mean, their field goal percentage is the worst, 362 out of 362 teams. They're 65% from the free throw line, but their defense is pretty solid, ranking a top half in all of college basketball. So that's like the one unit in this game that I think is pretty decent. So I think they're going to hold their own. Neither team runs a lot of pace, guys. So we're likely going to get like 60 possessions. We might even go sub 60. So you start doing point per possession. Are we going to get to 126? Probably not. But here's kind of the icing on the cake. The last 9 games Mississippi Valley State has played, the Delta Devils, they've averaged less than 50 points. And that's a pretty good sample size here, guys. Averaging less than 50 points in 9 games. One of the worst, teams offensively in college basketball. Their free throw percentage, 61% on the year. This is one of those games like when you're watching the college basketball ticker, every now and again you'll see a team score like 36, 38 points, something like that. I think this matchup might be that matchup where Mississippi Valley State, Joe, they might not score 40 points. I really highly doubt they score 50 points. Therefore, to get to 126, I just don't think there's enough possessions, guys. Not a lot of time to get this in, only about 20 minutes. It's 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. local time tip. Give me the SWAC game, Mississippi Valley State, Texas Southern. They don't make it to 126. Give me the under in this matchup going early today, Joe.
I'm with you. I think first 1 to 60 wins if you're lucky. Should be a very slow paced game there, guys. So if you got nothing else to do, you're just trying to count the minutes away. Definitely a game you want to tune into as we bring it back to Adam Trigger for the final best bet here. And you're picking a game with a team that's extremely frustrating here. Every time I bet on Hampton, they suck. Every time I don't bet them, they seem to stay within the number. So I don't know what to do with them. You have a jersey or a sweatshirt from Hampton, so I know you've been there. You know this team. Tell me what we're doing against North Carolina A&T, which they should not have a problem winning, I don't think.
So a couple things here. Yeah, this is a team I went to see play earlier this year. I wouldn't say I've been, on these shows, I think we've probably been about equal. I know one we played against them with Drexel, that one. The last time I actually played them was a loss. They played Campbell. And that's, I guess, where we'll start the handicap here, because for whatever reason, they continue to get priced as a pretty big favorite. That Campbell game, I think I got in with them at like pick. It went off 3.5 or 4. They lost that game. And they lost to William and Mary last time out. What I think's happening here a little bit is we've got numbers. If you look at their full season numbers, it would suggest that these two teams are pretty equal. when you look at the like entire body of work. If you look at what these teams have done recently, NCA&T has played much better basketball of late than Hampton. Now, Hampton, like the thing that concerns me with Hampton is they show flashes. They might play 20 good minutes. They might play like a good spurt and a half. But they have a very hard time putting a game together, a full 40-minute game. And it's really difficult to lay points, especially laying like key numbers. Like in this case, you'd be asked to lay, key numbers of 2 and 3 with a team that really struggles to put it together for 40 minutes. And now you're looking at the possibility of being without Tristan Maxwell here for Hampton because he only played 2 minutes in their last game. And he's kind of like one of the stabilizing, like upperclassmen presences on this team. If he's out, it's going to be a turnover fest, I think, for Hampton, who already is 335th nationally in turnovers, 14.1 turnovers per game. The other concern is Jerry Dang is probably going to take those minutes. Now, this kid he's fun to watch. He's a freshman. He can score. Hampton doesn't lose anything with him in the game offensively, but he might be one of the worst defenders I've seen in person. I mean, he plays no defense. He cherry picks half the time. He's lost on switches. Like the guy just doesn't play defense. And it's been the reason that Hampton's only been able to have him out there 15 to 20 minutes per game most of the season. He comes off the bench for some quick offense, but he is a total liability in there on the defensive end. And now you're probably looking at, I think last game when Maxwell was out, he played like 28 minutes, which is a concern, especially against an NCA&T team that doesn't turn the ball over. NCA&T 17th nationally, just 9 turnovers per game. And again, I think it's, this was a team that was priced to finish at the bottom of their conference. Remember, last year, this was Cam Woods, 20 points per game, legitimate scorer. NCA&T lost a lot of those guys. They now have a first-year head coach. They brought in junior college transfers. But some of these JUCO guys, Landon Galspar, averaging 20 points per game. Camion Shell looks like a pretty good player. So what I see is like NCA&T has turned into a better team than I think the market has anticipated, than anyone thought they would be. They've shown it recently with a nice win over Campbell, playing Drexel close, whereas Hampton's got some real issues. And, I don't know that a Hampton team that might be without Maxwell, who's probably, I would say, one of their, top 2 or 3 players on that roster, should be laying 4 points in a road game. So this ticked down a little bit. This wasn't a client play, but it's certainly close. I think for just based on a numbers play and on a light board on Monday, NCA&T plus 3.5 is probably the best thing I see out there. It's just tough to believe that Hampton, wins wins this game going away. I have a feeling this is going to be a tight game, and you're probably good taking the points here.
Right, certainly going to bring the defense, A&T, there. So there you have it, guys. Our friends from the Gold Sheet. Well, they too are taking a look here at one of the games on the board involving Florida A&M and Grambling here tonight. They are going to be looking at the over 133 in this one, and they're going to point out that Florida A&M's Jalen Spear missed the first 10 games of the season, but he's averaging almost 19 points a game since coming back. And of course, when he returned, A&M's games have seen an average of about 160 points a game, which makes it very, very fortunate to get such a low number in this particular spot. We've got Grambling, who was the number 2 in the SWAC in offensive efficiency last season, and don't see any reason why these two teams won't be able to get over the 133 in this one. If you visit our friends at Gold Sheet, great write-ups on a number of the games available to you here today, each and every day, plus great stats, figures, everything you guys need to know to make smart decisions here when it comes to betting in college hoops, NBA, or whatnot. Check out goldsheet.com. All right, that'll do it. Make sure you visit Bryan Power. Make sure you visit Drew Martin, and of course, Adam Trigger. Guys, best bets are locked and loaded. Lot going on here today. Huge week once again in college basketball. Loaded slate again tomorrow. So make plans to come back and join us. And until then, go ahead and click on that video on your screen right now. Check out all the other big matchups, the head-to-head previews that we've got for you here with more best bets on WagerTalk TV. And until we see you again, best of luck. We'll see you soon.